you spoke a lot about Charlie Kirk today. Could you just give a little bit, like, just your response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk yesterday?
Well, I just think it's a really important opportunity for all Canadians, but especially those holding elected office, to be clear that we can never allow political violence. We can never allow free speech and free expression to be intimidated in our country, and we have to make sure and do everything in our power to make sure some of the violence that we're seeing south of the border in the United States doesn't make its way up to Canada. We have our share of issues, of course, but we have to make sure that those are always debated and resolved peacefully through the democratic process, and using these great democratic principles that have been handed down to us by generations that came before us, and defended, by the way, through 2 world wars. So I think that's an ultimate responsibility, and it was just very shocking to see what happened. You see someone who was assassinated, who was murdered, essentially for the views that he held and the speech that he was engaging in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the state broadcaster, the CBC, did several pieces on this. You commented on it on X. There was also this morning, so-called hate expert Barbara Perry was interviewed, and she kind of said she was worried that this attack would be a backlash towards the left. She said that Charlie Kirk wanted to execute queers, and I just want to get your response on what the CBC's reporting has been on this.
Yeah, I think, look, whether it's the CBC, it's always especially egregious with the CBC because, of course, they're being subsidized with over $1 billion in taxpayer money. But, when somebody, especially somebody who is engaging in free speech, engaging in the free exchange of ideas, who's putting themselves out there courageously in pursuit of the truth, is gunned down, that is not the time, 12 hours later, to contextualize their gunning down, to somehow create this kind of social narrative, yes, they were killed, or these are some of the most controversial views that Charlie... No, now is a time to grieve, first and foremost, to reflect back on what society and the state of public discourse has become, and to most importantly reinforce that this is completely unacceptable, that we can never allow or justify in any way, shape, or form political violence, and we must always stand up for free speech, free expression, and the free exchange of ideas, especially on our university and college campuses, which Charlie Kirk was obviously most well known for.
Absolutely, and you talked about public discourse, and we've seen a lot of backlash or reactions to his death and celebrations of Charlie Kirk's death online. What do you think that has anything to do with kind of the radicalization that may have led to Charlie Kirk's death? Do you have a response on why this could have happened?
Well, look, there's always a couple things. You're always going to have people on the fringes. You're always going to have despicable, ugly souls out there that are celebrating violence and celebrating murder like this. So that's always going to be there. With the internet now, it's out there for everybody to see. We must always condemn it. At the same time, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that pretty much everyone across the political spectrum has been outspoken in denouncing this. This is a moment for people to come together, I think, in their denunciations and their reaffirmation of the important values that we all hold as Canadians and as members of Western civilization. I do think it's also an opportunity for Conservatives, I think, to make sure that we're separating our Liberal friends who we can disagree with proudly and disagree with strongly on matters of public policy, but continue to debate and exchange dialogue with as we compete for voters in our country, and elements of the hard left that have been moving away from liberalism, moving away from the democratic process, and resorting to more extreme tactics and rhetoric, things like words or violence, or deplatforming people, or this anti kind of free speech wrapped up in terminology like anti-fascism and things like that. So I think it's important as Conservatives, as responsible Conservatives and leaders, to separate those two things, as well as Liberals. because the vast majority of Canadians and the vast majority of our political leaders are on the same page about this kind of stuff. So it's important for us to be very vocal about it, while also identifying those corrosive elements of our society that need to be called out, that need to be, put into the corner where they belong, or they have no place in the public square.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think is relevant, or just something you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I just think that it's great to see, people like Melissa Lantzman and Pierre Poilievre and Andrew Lawton and Jamil Javani, who were all very outspoken after this event. I know, look, you read the headline and you see conservative political commentator assassinated. I mean, up until 5 months ago, that was my byline, was conservative political commentator. So it hits really close to home. It makes you think about things. But I think for most conservatives that I talk to, it's made them more determined than ever to keep up this fight. We're not going to be intimidated, and we're just going to keep fighting for the truth and for the courage of our convictions.